Hello, everyone. Sorry for the slight delay. We encountered a technical issue, but let's get started now. So hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Probst. I'm a research analyst at Keiko, and I'm pleased to be hosting this webinar today. So thank you very much for joining us for this discussion on what I believe is one of the hottest topics in the capital markets right now, the tokenization of financial securities. So during the webinar, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We will set aside time to answer them at the end of the session. Also, I must also inform you that the information presented here is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell. So today we are going to talk about Lise, the Lightning Stock Exchange, a new market infrastructure that aims to transform SMEs' access to financial markets. Lise positions itself as a next generation stock exchange with a clear proposition, so to make access to capital simpler, more direct, and better suited to the needs of the real economy. And specifically, Lise enables company to issue token share, list them, and then make them tradable, all within a regulated framework. And what makes this topic particularly interesting is that we are no longer merely engaged in a theoretical discussion about tokenization. We now have a concrete, real-world example with ST Group, and the company recently raised approximately 2.1 million euros during its IPO on Lise, which is a real success. So I'm now pleased to introduce our guest, Marc Epenigan, CEO of Lise. Marc, thank you so much for joining us today. You are leading a project that is quite rare in the financial ecosystem, which is the creation of a new regulated French exchange built on tokenization and dedicated to financing SMEs. So it's not every day that we witness the birth of a new exchange, let alone one that seeks to rethink the primary markets, the secondary markets, and investor access all at once. So before we dive into the details of the Lise model, let's start with the basics. Marc, could you tell us what inspired you to create Lise?
Hey everyone, hello Thomas. We think that IPO used to be something useful to finance economy. Like a decade ago, a lot of companies in France, in Europe, in the world financed through IPO. There were hundreds of IPO per year in France 20 years ago. And since then, no more IPO. Like we have 2, 3, 4 IPO a year. It's kind of nothing. It's not financing the economy. It becomes too complicated, and every SME are not looking into the public world anymore. And we think it's that's not what it should look like. And market infrastructure become too heavy and not focused on smaller issuer. And I think that tokenization bring back the capacity of market infrastructure to serve smaller issuer and to bring back SME to public markets through IPO. And every SME in Europe need capital, need funding. We have the ambition to redirect saving of Europeans into our real economy, that's SME. And I really think that IPO, market infrastructure, are the only scalable tool to make it happen. So we wanted to rebuild our market infrastructure, evolve to make it easier for a smaller issuer.
Okay, very clear. And I would like to come back to Lise's core mission, because when we look at the European markets, we see a rather striking paradox, because on the one hand, there is a massive need for financing among businesses, particularly in strategic sectors such as defense, aerospace, energy, or infrastructure, for example. And on the other, access to traditional financial markets often remains complex and costly. And many companies need equity capital to scale up, but traditional public markets aren't always a realistic solution for them. And Lise seems to be positioning itself precisely at this point of friction. So my question is the following: for a company seeking funding, what does an IPO on Lise offer compared to private fundraising, bank financing, or traditional IPO?
It's very different approach. Like Lise is a stock exchange, we are a regulated European stock exchange, but we are also a central security deposit. We have our own tokenized deposit, so the cash legs inside, and we are also the banking placements for the IPO. So, with stock exchange, you have two parts: the IPO procedure, then the listing procedure. On the IPO procedure, you only need the issuer and us. Normally, on a notary IPO, you have the listing sponsor, the banking placements, you have the financial communication, you have a few partnership, and it costs a lot of fixed cost, and you have to handle them during the IPO process. And as an SME, it's never that easy. With Lise, you have a digitalized platform for the IPO, and you have only us, and it makes it able to reduce the cost and reduce the delay of the IPO. And so an IPO on Lise is only 30,000 euro fixed costs versus like 10 times more on notary market. So it's impactful. Moreover, when you are listed on the stock market, each year you have a few partner to handle your quotation. You have the stock market, you have also, again, the listing sponsor, the paying agent, you have the CSD, you have what you call the wire. So you have to pay like 5 to 6 intermediaries each year, and it costs around, for SME, listed SME in Europe, 200,000 euro. With Lise, you have only Lise, one-stop shop that handle all the work I just said, and it costs 30,000 euro per year. So we make the quotation a lot cheaper, and even that's the price is not our main competitive advantage, is the simplicity. When you're an SME, you don't want to handle 10 partner to handle your quotation. It's easy for SME to have a lot of different partner to speak with. With this, all is digitalized, and we are doing all. So it's a lot easier and quicker, and so very different at the end for an SME to go on this. For other comparison, you mentioned private equity. We are speaking with traditional SME, industrial SME, SME that are alive since 10, 20, 30 years, that have EBITDA growth of one number each year. So there is not a lot of private equity fund on those kind of SME. So generally, they are looking for debt, and there is not a lot of tool for equity for that kind of SME in Europe. So we are kind of the only equity financing tool that is doable for them, for this kind of SME. That's because in Europe we have a funding issue for equity for SME, and that's the goal of Lise, to answer this funding issue.
Okay, and speaking of that, another very important aspect is that of targeted sectors. So in the current context marked by geopolitical tensions, including war, massive reindustrialization needs, and challenges related to energy, technological, and military sovereignty, the issue of SME financing has become central. And the case of ST Group illustrates these points very well, as it's a company active in the aerospace, defense, and space sectors. And these are sectors where industrial cycles are long, investment needs are pretty significant, and where SMEs often play an essential role in value chains. So in a world where conflicts, trade tensions, and sovereignty issues are becoming more prominent, do you think capital markets need to reshape to better finance these strategic companies?
That's for sure. Before capital market, we need, as a European, as French, as a citizen, to finance better our economy. And I think the capital market is made for that. So capital market need to redirect saving to strategical, critical SME, and to make it happen fast, because a lot of geopolitical issues happening very fast, and you need to redirect capital into strategic company fast enough, because if we are not fast enough, we lose all, I don't want to use this word, but kind of the war, because it's an economical war. And that's the play of Lise. We are focusing on strategical and defense European SME because they need capital, because they always needed capital, and it's become difficult for them because of a lot of ESG norm extra to find capital. And we think that European citizens want to finance their defense SME. We will not focus only on defense, but we think it's a good use case to begin with because that's EV industrial SME that need capital, and that's also a kind of SME that please to investor. So we think it's a good sector to begin with, but at the end we want to do all kind of SME in Europe.
Okay, crystal clear. And maybe more broadly, is Lise intended to become a preferred exchange for industrial and sovereign companies? Or do you have plans to eventually diversify into other sectors or asset classes?
Yeah, we want to do all kind of sector, all kind of equity and SME, but we will also do other asset classes. We want to do bonds, we want to do funds, ETF, and very close in time. We are traditional in a tokenized way, but we have a traditional stock exchange that can do all kind of regulated financial instruments. And we want to make our technology and the way we operate, like the fact that we integrate the post markets, able to provide a lot of value to different use cases. Like at the end, we are a stock exchange that is more efficient. We are the only current worldwide stock exchange to be 24/7, and that's useful not only for equity but also for all kind of financial instruments. And we want to bring those kind of value to other products. So we will begin with SME. That's our core mission, but we will also do bonds and ETF in the near future.
All right, very clear. And now I would like to talk about data with you. For a market to function at scale, if we can say, it's not enough for it to simply exist in technical terms. It must also be understandable, transparent, monitorable, and connectable to the rest of the financial ecosystem. And this is where data becomes central. And in traditional markets, market data is at the heart of everything. For example, it enables, of course, asset valuation, risk management, index construction, so on and so on. And in the tokenized markets, these needs do not disappear. And on the contrary, they become even more important as the market can operate continuously with instant settlement cycles and new interactions between traditional finance and digital infrastructure. And it is in this context that the partnership between Keiko and Lise takes on its full meaning, with the goal of bringing institutional grade market data to tokenized securities. So I would like to ask you directly, so we have both points of view. So in your model, why is data so strategic?
We are a 24/7 stock market with instant DVP. The core value is to have data, and as you mentioned, when there is a fund that buy tokenized stock on Lise, normally on traditional stock exchange, you have the opening time at 8 a.m., closing time at the end of the day. So it's easy to have, to make the calculation of NAV, etc. In the world of Lise, 24/7, instant DVP, and all is instant, you need to have data at each time to provide a NAV, to provide maybe an eNAV, to make sure you can have all the information instantly. Because if you are an instant market with 24/7, but the data is slow, it's not working. So we needed, and that's the partnership with Keiko, to make sure that the data on price of stock on Lise is available everywhere through Bloomberg, etc. And very fast to make sure that all institutional investors can have this data in their portfolio and to make sure they can calculate all they need for their report, for the net asset value, etc. So it's more needed in a 24/7 world, in the instant world that it was before. So yeah, it's the core of every market infrastructure to have a good data quality and availability.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And one of the key issues I believe is central as well to the future is interoperability between traditional finance and tokenized finance. And I would like to ask you how you see this transition. Does the future of tokenized markets lie in a complete break with existing infrastructure, or rather in a phase of hybridization where new infrastructure must be compatible with traditional standards?
It's not an easy question, to be honest. The less fragmentation we got, the better. So interoperability is great in theory. In reality, it's hard to interoperate a solution that is 24/7 and have an instant delivery payment cycle with a solution that is open only 9 hour a day and it's have a 2-day delivery payment cycle. So it's not that easy, but we need to find a solution. The solution is to make bridge and is to also rethink how we want interoperability. I think, and that's Lise's view, that interoperability can be brought by brokers, and a broker can be connected in a lot of different solutions. And if, the cash and the settlement is instant, it becomes easier to have interoperability with the broker. The fact that there is a GVP cycle of today make interoperability needed by solution between them and by the CSD between them, but with instant GVP cycle, we think that the broker can have a new role on that, because with the cash that can circulate instantly, you can have this kind of interoperability with this kind of intermediaries that was not possible before.
Okay, crystal clear. I want to be mindful of the time we have left, so that we can also take some questions from our audience. So do not hesitate to just write some question on the chat. And to wrap up this webinar, I would like to ask about Lise's ambitions. So you've completed a highly symbolic first operation with ST Group, but the challenge now, I believe, is to build on that momentum. So what's next for Lise?
So we want to continue with IPO. We want to do an IPO of other industrial SME this year. And we want, as I mentioned, to do other financial instruments like bonds, ETF, very fast, to make sure we can have a different kind of product listed on Lise to show how tokenization can bring value for our issuer and investor. That's our goal. Not that easy, I'm sure you believe me, to be a pioneer on something. Natively tokenized equity was a lot of work, but now we need to industrialize that to show to the world the real interest of it. And that scale, that market infrastructure is useful. So we need to have this scaling happening fast.
Okay, and if we look ahead 5 years, 10 years, what do you think a capital market profoundly transformed by tokenization would look like?
I think it will be like 24/7 everywhere and with instant DVP. And instant change a lot of things, like I'm sure you saw how instant SEPA changed the way you are making wire between you and your supplier, etc. And for capital market, it will bring a lot of value to have instant flow between market infrastructure, broker, delivery payment. With instant, you kind of don't need middle and back office anymore because it's instant. So at the time of the execution, the delivery payment is done. So there is no settlement fail, no semi-settlement fail. Yeah, it changed totally the capital market infrastructure. It just brings a lot of value, and also it reduces the risk, because with instant flow, at the end you reduce the risk. So it's kind of rare that you have new technology that reduce risk at short term, but that's the case, with instant.
Okay, very clear. Well, I'm going to check. So this is the time to write your question on the chat if you have any of them. On my side, thank you very much, Mark. It was a very, very interesting. I asked all the questions I wanted to ask, so that was super insightful. Well, if we don't have any question, I think we can wrap up as well. So what stands out to me from our discussion is that Lise is not limited to technological innovation. It's a project that rethinks parts of the capital markets architecture with a very concrete goal to better finance SMEs and make markets more accessible. And by the way, the ST Group case is particular retelling, because it shows that this vision can be translated into real-world operations. The French industrial SME was able to raise, again, approximately 2.1 million euros, open its capital to retail and institutional investors, and then see its securities traded on a tokenized secondary market that is accessible around the clock. So it's a true demonstration of what a new generation of market infrastructure could become. And I also note that data is a fundamental element of this transition. So thank you again, Mark, for your time and for your clear expectations and explanations. We just received a first question from Simon. Lise has a bright future. Can you tell me how you are building IPO pipeline?
It's a very dense question. So Lise actually its capital few European banks and work with banks, because SME are customer of banks, and generally they go through banks to find financing, and banks can provide debt, but they are not able to provide equity. So when you are an SME that are speaking with the banker and say, okay, I need 20 million to finance an industry, a new industry in the region, the bank can say, okay, we may be able to do 8 million or 10 million euro in debt, but first of all, you need the equity, and you can do an IPO on Lise to find the equity. So we think that's a good way to find some project, because it's bring by or shareholder, is bring by banks that know this SME already, and after the equity, you have the debt going on directly. So yeah, it makes sense. So we like this approach, but we have also a partnership with the French army that help us to target strategical SME for them that need capital to make sure they can build faster, build differently, and yeah, generally we do it like big partnership like that.
Okay, very clear. Well, I don't see any other question for the moment. Do not hesitate to reach out to me, or I believe reach out to Mark if you have any follow-up on that. Thank you to everyone who joined us. We hope this discussion has helped you better understand the challenges of tokenizing financial securities and Lise's role in financing the real economy. Of course, I invite you to follow us on our social media channels, LinkedIn and X, and to subscribe to Keiko Research if you'd like to receive market analysis and insights. Well, everyone, Mark, have a great end of the day, and see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Thomas.
Bye-bye.